Anthony Joshua takes out Pulev in 9 rounds. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Remstar Says So. So let's get straight into this one, guys. Anthony Joshua makes his first defense of his newly won unified heavyweight crown. As many of you guys know, he lost the belts back in June of 2019 to Andy Ruiz, and he won them back just over a year ago in December last year in Arab Emirates against Ruiz. So today was his first defense as being a two-time unified heavyweight champion, and he went in there and he did the business. I am a little bit disappointed. I ran a poll on my Instagram and I said that I was expecting AJ to get Pulev out there in 6 rounds or less. The fact that this fight went to the second half of the fight clearly shows maybe his punching power's not quite there, or I don't know, maybe he was a little bit reserved. I think ever since he lost to Ruiz in his 2 fights since losing to Ruiz about 18 months ago, he's just not really looked the same when you think about it. In the second Ruiz fight in the rematch, he literally just jabbed and ran. He didn't really sort of trade. He was very scared to sort of mix it up, and he just used the fact that he slimmed down and used his speed and stamina to sort of just tag and run. In this fight, I'm not going to lie, he did box well, and especially somebody who's been out the ring for over a year, I guess you need to sort of knock the cobwebs out and get a bit of ring rust. And maybe he also had one eye on the prize in the future, maybe thinking about an undisputed fight with Fury, or even possibly Wilder if Wilder manages to force through that rematch and can get the job done. But you would think that AJ may have learnt his lesson. I mean, the first time when he lost to Ruiz, a lot of people blamed it on the fact that he was thinking about an undisputed fight with Deontay Wilder. So why on earth would he now be sort of thinking about fighting Tyson Fury? You would think that he would have learnt his lesson and just thought about the man in front. But let's sort of break this down. Like, I'm not going to lie, even I was disappointed in how long it took to get the stoppage. AJ did box very well. He sort of jabbed very well, and he sort of controlled the pace. It wasn't the AJ that we've become accustomed to, the AJ that's sort of struggling for breath from about round 6 and 7 onwards. I think what we can do is really credit this down to the fact that AJ is stripped down, and he's continued to sort of lean out a lot. He's dropped a lot of that ridiculous bulking muscle that he sort of carried in some of his previous fights, maybe like the Klitschko fight, the Takam fight, even the Joseph Parker fight. I do like this new sort of streamlined, slicker AJ that we're seeing. I always said that he looked too fucking stupid. He looked like a big bulky bodybuilder. That's what he looked like, a bodybuilder with boxing gloves on. I think that this new sort of physique that he's carrying is definitely what he needs to do, definitely the physique that's going to help him in his pursuit of potentially becoming an undisputed world champion. There are a couple of hurdles in the way, but let's sort of stick to the task at hand. So, the first round, he was just sort of, it was a feel-out round. Nobody really didn't do much. It was a couple of nice jabs from both sides, and AJ, he really used his sort of God-given advantages with the height and the reach. AJ's reach is 82 inches, Pulev's reach is 79.5. That gives AJ the best part of 2.5 inches on reach. And I think AJ's 6'6", and I think Pulev is about 6. I think Pulev's about 6'3", maybe 6'4". So AJ did have a natural advantage. Also, when you look at like the sort of bone structure in that, Pulev, he looked like he was in the best physical shape of his life in terms of being as slim and as aesthetically pleasing as he ever has, but he just never looked like he was going to be able to get AJ out of there. He didn't have the muscle. He didn't have any of the sort of things that, maybe that extra weight might have put a bit of extra force behind the punches. But yeah, I mean, I never thought that Pulev had a chance in hell. As I said, I was picking AJ to get Pulev out of there within 6 rounds or less. So yeah, the first round, it was like a sort of feel out round. Both just sort of threw in their jabs, and AJ did put in a few right hands, but I don't think he actually threw any with any sort of conviction. He was just trying to see where Pulev was at. The second round, it started getting a bit more juicy. AJ's putting together a couple of combinations, and all Pulev is really trying to do is trying to counter the jab and put something in else on his own. The problem is, when you're a shorter fighter fighting a guy with a longer reach and who is taller than you, sometimes you do have to eat leather in order to get forwards. The problem is, the person who has the height and reach advantage, if they can keep behind the jab, they don't really have to do much, mainly because, they can keep you at bay. But if you're the shorter man, sometimes you have to eat leather to get forward, because you cannot jab from a distance because you're not going to reach your opponent. So you've got to come inside. And, Pulev was getting touched up. By the third round, I think AJ put him down. And I was just like, okay, I cracked a smile, because as I said, I picked AJ within 6 rounds. Pulev got back up. I think AJ dropped him again in the third, and Pulev got up again. And I was just like, wow, this guy, he's got a bit of heart, because other people that AJ have fought in the past, Brazil, Molina, all those kind of guys, these guys would have stayed right down. I think AJ, he really needed to sort of send a message. He's not had a knockout in 2 years. His last knockout was, Povetkin, the back end of 2018. Obviously, we know all the trouble he had with Andy Ruiz, getting his ass handed to him in June of 19, and then the rematch. And then 2020, due to the corona, 2020's been a write-off. So, yeah, it's been 2 years before the knockout. AJ sort of took control of this fight from about round 4 to 8, and Pulev never really had much else going for him. Every so often, Pulev did land a nice little tasty right hand, and there was 1,000 fans in that arena, and you could hear the fans sort of reacting every time Pulev sort of hit AJ with a ooh and that sort of thing. And in between the rounds where they show the little clips and highlights of the fight. And there was that one time where Pulev did hit him nicely with his right hand, but Pulev just don't have the power. I really don't rate Pulev at all. I think Pulev's greatest achievement in a boxing ring was beating Hughie Fury on points. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't really think of any other sort of highlight performances. AJ was just sort of picking him off. AJ really didn't give a shit about Pulev, and as the fight went on, AJ was just getting more and more confident. He was just hitting Pulev with right uppercuts at will. I'm seeing him throw 1, 2, 3, 4 uppercuts, and Pulev is just eating them. That one thing we have to do is maybe we're gonna have to get some scientists to study the chin of Kubrat Pulev, because those uppercuts AJ was throwing, he would have sent most men into a grave. But Pulev, he was staying in there. I mean, by the third knockdown came, I was just like, man, the referee should just wave it off. But I actually really respect this referee. He was giving Kubrat Pulev the opportunity to beat a 10 count, and he gets knocked down for the third time. And then the fourth, I think the biggest issue it's just that Pulev was just spent. I think maybe some of the criticism for AJ might be that, he's not the best fighter on the inside. And I think if he was to fight a Tyson Fury, I think Tyson Fury might try lean on him and use some of his dirty tactics. I mean, we've seen previously when AJ fought Parker, every time Parker got on the inside, Parker was lighting him up. And luckily, the referee must have had a brown envelope before that fight, because as we remember, every time Parker got inside, the referee sort of pulled them apart. So poor Parker, he never really had a chance, did he? But AJ's done the business. 4 knockdowns and a knockout. He retains his belt. That's the most important thing. I personally think AJ needed to send a message to the likes of Fury, or even possibly Wilder. And I feel like Fury right now, I don't think he's going to be watching that fight thinking to himself, shit, I've got anything that I need to worry about. I think Tyson Fury, especially if he goes into an undisputed fight with AJ, if he fights like he did against Wilder in the second fight, I don't think he's got anything to worry about. I think Tyson Fury, after the fight, he went on Instagram and basically called out AJ and said that he'll knock him out in 3 rounds. I don't know about that. I mean, I'd fancy Fury on points, but who knows? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. What did you guys think about the fight? I'd give AJ maybe like a 7 out of 10 performance. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. I'm liking this new style of boxing that AJ's brought in, where it's not just being a power brute, but he's turning into sort of like a boxer puncher, where he's using a lot more of his boxing skills, but also when the time comes, he's going to use his brute force to get people out. I've never been the biggest AJ fan, but after a year out the ring, I can't really criticize that performance too tough. The only thing I would say is that he should have got him out there sooner. This is the reason why I don't bet on boxing, because for me, Wilder would have taken out Pulev if he was fighting him from the first knockdown. He would have finished the job. And if Fury was fighting Pulev the same way how he fought Wilder, I would have fancied Tyson Fury to get Pulev out of there. Pulev, he'll live to fight another day. Maybe he'll fight a Joe Joyce, maybe he'll fight a Dillian White, maybe even like a Luis Ortiz or a Andy Ruiz. I don't know. I think that Pulev has got a few more paydays. It all depends on what Bob Arum wants to do with him. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment, hit like, share the video. That's the end of the show because Remstar says so.